Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Retro Pop Planet. What would you say if I told you one of the oldest ballparks in America wasn't, Wrigley Field or any of the major league clubs or even minor league clubs for that matter, but right here in abandoned prison? There is a little bit of debate about which field is actually the oldest. If you look online, there's several different articles about this site. In some cases I've read had up to 3 fields. However, I can only find 2 fields here. This is probably the oldest and the one that has been just sort of left to fall into disrepair. And it has really gone downhill just in the last, say, 10 years. And that's why I wanted to document it today, because as of now, there are no plans to redo this facility. They've been looking for years to find the funding to repurpose this site. Many famous performers played at this prison. In 1959, Ella Fitzgerald held a concert here, and there were 2,000 inmates crammed in these bleachers, but there were also other bleachers along either side as well. Played a just huge show. Apparently the inmates were, shoulder to shoulder and knee to knee. It was hot and sweaty. But it started a trend where more performers started playing here also. So awesome. This is one of the original dugouts. And the one on the other side has completely collapsed and the bricks are actually stacked. We'll go check that out now. You can see this entire structure has collapsed and bricks have just been stacked off to the side, but this is where the other dugout used to be. Still has the hookups for lights and possibly a PA system. I'm not going to go in there because there are wasp nests on either side and probably a black widow or two. Now I want to go check out the other field that's also located here, but this is believed to be the oldest structure, built in 1925 by former inmates. Back in the day, back in the early 1900s, a lot of prisons had baseball teams and football teams. It was really the one place where they could feel human again, and oftentimes teams were commingled, sometimes with their guards, sometimes with other prisoners. They would host events where they would play exhibition games against minor league teams, depending on where they were located. They may also have played against major league teams. And in some cases, when prisoners were released, they would get called up to the big leagues just based off of their experience in the prison leagues. Now out here in center field, right around where the warning track would have been, is the scoreboard. And I want to show you that we are in a prison complex because we are in the shadow of 3 guard towers. There's one. There's 2 behind the tree, and the third one is back over there. I'm trying to get a good angle with the sun. This sign has really degraded in the last even 5 years that I came out here. And you can see that there is actually a quarter sign, meaning they also had a football team or some variation back in the day. So this would have also been used as a football field also. Now I'm not going to do a full history on this prison complex. Other folks have done it a lot better. Check out my brother's YouTube channel, Adventures with Paul. He does a really thorough history of this place. There are so many different versions of history from here, from when it initially was founded in the early 1900s. It was a workhouse where prisoners were just minimum security, short-term stays, and they were taught skills like brick making and glass blowing and things of that nature to get them back into the workforce. Over time, this prison actually became higher guarded location. You had, you know, murderers that were staying here. What happened over time is this place just got completely overcrowded. There were prison breaks. This prison was still active when I was in school. In 1996, it was falling apart. It was going to take too much to rebuild. The living situation here was atrocious, and Congress decided to shut it down. It took a number of years. In 1996, they enacted the order. They started moving inmates out of here. And then in 2001, the last inmate was escorted out of here. The prison complex closed, and it would remain closed for a number of years. In 2008, this was actually turned into the Workhouse Arts Center, and it's pretty awesome. I've found a couple photos of this field on the internet, although there is not a lot of information. But you can see that this was some sort of retaining wall, and this stadium is actually set up almost like a bowl where it's kind of sunken. You've got a retaining wall here, you've got the backstop and the bleachers, the two dugouts. I'm assuming there would have been bleachers on this side as well. And then all out here was your playing field, and then you would have had your outfield warning track right around here. And then of course you've got your guard towers making sure that nobody decides to turn around and run off into the woods. You can see that the corrugated metal roof has completely sloughed off the top of the grandstand. You can just imagine the prisoners stacked in here to watch Ella Fitzgerald and her band out on the field. I bet that was an amazing concert. It's unclear when this ramp was added, but this field at one point was made to be ADA compliant. They set up a really fun haunted house here on property during October. This is a really cool site. It's a really cool mixed development. You've got one half is the Workhouse Art Center. A lot of the dormitories have been set up for artists. I've actually taken classes here. I've taken life drawing courses. A lot of the buildings are still here. They're just abandoned. There also is another side of the prison, which is turned into mixed use commercial and residential, where they built a bunch of new structures commingled with the old structures on prison grounds. And we're gonna go check that out now, because that is the site of the other field. Now, I remember towards the life of this prison, there were a lot of escapes. Now, they would find the prisoners pretty quickly, but a lot of times they would either go through the tunnels underneath 123, and they would find them in the cornfields across the road, or, you know, just walking about, because there really wasn't that much around here back in the day to get off to. But it was always a running joke, kind of a terrifying joke, that a prisoner was going to turn up in your city. I need to come back here during museum hours, because this is where they housed the women suffragists in 1917, and most famously of all was Lucy Burns. And as that sign says, into the fall of 1917, arrests mounted. I Authorities strengthened sentences and intensified pressure on the suffragists, designed to hold 30 prisoners. Occoquan swelled with over 100. The suffragists used their time behind bars to make a political argument. They refused to wear prison garb or do prison work like sewing and laundry. They asserted that as political prisoners, they should be treated differently. Some suffragists even resorted to an extreme protest, the hunger strike. It proved a powerful statement that captured the public's attention. Neat, check that out. It says Occoquan Barber Shop. And I'm assuming there used to be two barber poles there on either side. That's awesome. So wild to just come across a random guard tower here. When this prison was at full capacity, it was pretty innovative. They had their own water supply right here. They had their own water treatment plant. They had their own power facility. And for a time, they had farms here. They were actually able to grow most of their own food. Another old guard shack. This one probably had a gate mechanism here for when they drove through. These are all apartments now, and they look really awesome. There are brand new houses designed to look like the other structures here at the prison. Community swimming pool, which is now closed for the season. It's so wild to me to see brand new townhouses commingled in with old prison buildings. Such an unusual setup. The old chapel building is for lease. My brother actually thinks somebody should turn this into a brewery. But I found a bunch of photos from the Prison Reform Project from the 1970s in this building during a service. The prison had its own rail line, and I guess this is an old trestle where they would have bring cars in to unload and carry away goods. We've now made our way over to Liberty Green. This is the second of the Ballfields. This one is not as old as the first one we visited. I believe this was built sometime in the 1950s, I think 1955. And unlike the other field, this one was actually restored. This is a mixed-use facility for local residents. You're out here, you can see folks walking their dogs. There is a signboard here telling you what you can and can't do here. I'm gonna try to stay off the grass as much as I can because it looks like they've actually reseeded it, but this was restored around 10 years or so ago. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to accurately line up shots, but in 1965, Frank Sinatra played here along with Count Basie, and Ella Fitzgerald, I think, came back. I actually found this concert on the internet. That's what's so awesome about the internet. It's a small YouTube clip. I can't play it for copyright reasons. I can show part of it now, and I will link to the full video if you want to watch the full show.
The words I love you. I like being with the public under almost any circumstance, regardless of where it is or why, so that I do my utmost to fulfill that responsibility as a performer and as a man in public life.
He can make any audience feel he's their kind of guy.
Why don't you fly?
It's actually really hard to tell which direction you can see Frank singing from, but you can see a guard tower in the background. It's either somewhere in this direction, but there are actually two guard towers right over here. So I'm wondering if it's either this one or the one that's right here behind the grandstand. This video was originally going to be just about the baseball history here because I love vintage baseball. What's so interesting and intriguing about prison baseball leagues is that by far and away, they were some of the first integrated clubs in the entire country. These guys were playing together, blacks and whites, Hispanic, Latino, playing together in prison in like the 19 teens and traveling around the country, traveling regionally, playing baseball exhibitions. And it was a way for them to get out and sort of have a semi-normal life while they were incarcerated. And thank you for joining me on this little adventure. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a blast. There's still so much history here that I didn't even begin to cover. There's just way too much, and I don't know a lot about it. It's interesting because as a local growing up in this area, we drove by the prison a lot, and you would speculate and hear stories about escapes and things of that nature. But it's only since they really opened it up to the public and residents that we really have any idea what actually took place here. One other little quick factoid that I absolutely have to mention before I leave you here today is that Chuck Brown, the godfather of go-go, that local DC sound, actually was incarcerated here, I believe in the 1950s, and learned to play the guitar in this prison.
I feel like busting loose, give me the bridge now.
So if you like this video, please give it a like. If you'd like to subscribe to see what we're up to next, please hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you've been here or if you enjoyed the video. I'd love to read those comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.